Yeah. The number one reason not to do my project is because it is scary. Thousands, if not millions, could die if you change the world weather patterns, which the project would do. Of course, anything that would solve the weather problems and climate change will cause world weather patterns to change. Anything less will not. The weather patterns have changed and will continue to change no matter what we do. We currently have 2 billion people in food insecurity, desertification of forests worldwide, methane is coming up all over the Arctic, species are going extinct, like how killer whales are dying, allowing the killer whites or the white sharks or whatever to roam further north, and such are happening all over. But you know, I haven't really researched the killer whale problem, but I'll go over the rest along with the expected devastation of people, the environment, and cost if my project is not done. $70 trillion, according to some. You know, but if you talk about the killer whale problem, about how they're not, stopping the killer whites to come up, and how the shark attacks are going to just go all the way up the coast to Alaska once the killer whales are gone. You know, nobody cares though. And right now, China is doing it anyhow. They're using furnishers to manufacture 10 billion tons of rain, apparently. You know, so all over the place they're building these furnaces, and I guess burning wood or whatever to get this silver iodide up in the atmosphere to mix with the clouds to get it to rain down. And of course, what that's going to do is that's heating up the earth a little bit, you know, getting rid of sequestered CO2 that's in the form of wood and releasing it also, and messing with the weather patterns. Of course, for the farmers in that area, it's a pretty good idea. And do they care about what's happening in the rest of the world? No. So, us not doing weather modification is not going to change the fact that other countries are doing it, and weather patterns are going to change all around the world. And if nobody gives a crap to worry about the billions of starving people or to feed all the billions of people that are destroying the earth in their futile attempt to survive, then we're all screwed. Um, uh, I need to, you know, the get into the problems with the other current methods being tried to solve these problems and just how insane they are. But that's one of the major reasons why my project isn't going forth, is because of these other projects that are saying that they're going to solve the world's problem and really are just insane. From what I call reverse volcanic engineering, we need to put like, if we're 1 to 3 trillion tons of CO2 over budget, then mixing that CO2 into fluids to get it highly enriched fluids that are pumped into the ground, then we would need to have, what is it, like 10 trillion tons of CO2 enriched fluid pumped into the earth. And you don't think that's going to pop up like a volcano? No, this is just crazy talk. And converting that, the CO2 into fuel, it's great. What are you going to do? Have a million of these converters, build them all up, and that itself is going to generate a lot of CO2. Then you're going to put it in a gas tank the size of Canada. Um, Nah. Um, okay. Then they're putting the stuff up in the atmosphere to reflect the sun's rays out into space to cool off the Earth. Well, when you reflect rays from the sun out into space, um, especially the high intensity rays that are, you know, real important in that, then those are obviously going to reflect the rays of the Earth going back out into space. And it's called the heating effect. And they don't really go over that well. And they say that, oh, the heating effect is only going to be like 2 or 3%. If it's that little, then how's having, is it going to have that effect on the Earth itself? Other people that are contrary, I've heard estimates up to 40% heating effect. So that would, in turn, be you put those particles in the upper atmosphere, and then the effect of the cooling would have a 40% reduction effect. Is that per year? How many years is going to come down? Um, I find it, horrible to do this stuff. I guess a little bit of testing won't really, how much will that hurt? I don't know. Is that going to stop the plants from growing? Whatever. It won't. It will to. It will have an effect on the plant growth. And it's not good. Um, how much effect that is, that's questionable. Um, Also, there's methods to thicken the Arctic ice cap. Um, Now, we need to have thicken the Arctic ice cap, and there's reasons why. And they are gone over scientifically on the Arctic Methane Emergency by the Arctic Methane Emergency Group. And they go through the science of it, of why and how to do it. And they've written letters to all the world leaders, and yet it's not being done. And if that's not being done, then it shows that really the world doesn't care, and they're not into cooling down the earth. The energy corporations are in charge, and they're being told stuff like, you know, Putin's environmental advisor stating that the global warming will have a beneficial effect for Russia. Um, so, they don't care about it. Once effort is being put into thickening the Arctic ice cap, and countries are concerned and realize that the what's happening, then I'll realize that my project has a chance. Till then, I don't know. Um, and also, all the organizations out there taking money. There's 1.5 million 501c3s wanting money from the government that me trying to get help am competing with. And I don't have any help, not one person. It's just tiring. It's impossible. I'm not a professional grant writer. I'm not very good at that at all. What I'm good at is coming up with a solution, and people are just going to lie to me and, you know, use disinformation to give out reasons why I should just be treated like crap. Um, I'll get into some more bitching later. Um, And to do this, we'll have to deal with Russia and China, and Pakistan and all the other nuclear nations. Um, if people go into nuclear war and other crap, it's going to make this whole procedure of cooling down the earth a lot more difficult, and we'll probably have a lot more methane released and have a real problem. Um, and another thing that scares me is how other people would use just parts of my project. That's one of the reasons why I'm not releasing it at all. I really would like to take some charge of it, be involved, because I could see people just using all my tech to freeze up Antarctica and let the Arctic heat up, and then the methane would come out, and then the people in the equator countries would just be screwed. Um, and also, I'd like to use my platforms to be a method to end starvation until starvation is ended, or to just help out with it and to feed people that are otherwise destroying the earth in order to feed themselves. It needs to be stopped. We need to heal the ocean. It's a big problem. There's they did soundings with they could take the soundings from earthquakes and study the waves from the earthquake of the material that it goes through, and it's different sounding stations from the different centers of earthquakes, with all the different rays coming up in different directions going to the stations. They could tell what material is where inside the Earth's crust. That, along with drilling cores, they could get an idea, and I've heard ideas from doing that they have 2,400 gigatons of methane under the East Siberian Arctic shelf. 600 gigatons is free, and that's just a little bit of the Arctic. And there's much more out there, and it scares the crap out of me. Anyhow, just need to take control of the weather, cool down the ocean, cool down the atmosphere. It's hard to know what will happen. Every study has been debunked by another study, which other scientists argue debunking arguments which have been debunked. And this is what climate science has turned into. You now have to study the science behind both sides of controversy to understand which one is telling the truth. And then you'll have to research the facts, learn the physics behind it all, or at least some of it, being that some things still do not make sense, even in physics. Much of it is just being discovered, like how protons spin in the atoms, and how there's so much we just do not know. Even if you learn it, you'll get depressed and despair. There's nothing that can be done, as if we're all screwed, as one scientist has stated. Even if you did come up with a great idea, because you did not want to die along with everyone else, you'll probably get ignored, called alarmist, as if it was an alarming subject, and how these people do not like alarmist statements, and they also take up basket weaving. You'll run your ideas past one of the top engineers in the world, probably along with two of his assistants, who'll tell you that it should work, doesn't defy the laws of physics, should increase food production to feed 20 billion worldwide, but will not get funding. And will even write to your legislatures and have the project make it to the president back in November 2000, stating that he'll have his scientists look into it. Then nothing. Then they'll be too busy with stuff like 9/11, and then you'll get death threats over the internet, people mocking you, quoting you, peer-reviewed articles, which could not be debunked at the time without teaching the science behind what's going on, um, and which goes against the science behind the peer-reviewed articles, which were false. But you know, they could quote it and argue that there's no use, and there's no use to argue with them because they'll just not understand the science, and you'll just be ignored and called a liar, and have like $200,000-500,000 of inheritance just taken from you and then laughed at and told if you were working on anything important they'll help you on. Just ridiculous. And with me putting out there some of this, there will be researching efforts to destroy hurricanes, most notably with my tornado killers probably. This being a mistake, as they play an important role in our ocean heat system. They actually cool the ocean and cool the earth, which is why we need to generate them and control them. But that's a little bit more difficult than destroying them. And we might have a problem doing that also because the jet stream is playing havoc with hurricanes and causing the ocean to heat up, which is causing worse hurricanes when they're able to form.